Yo, 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 welcome to Crate 808, the 90s rap podcast that keeps its tin boots laced and grill pieces iced. And today we're joined by a returning guest, former contributing editor of Hip Hop Connection and co-founder of Fat Lace Mag. Rob Pursey is back in the house. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm literally back in the house. I'm feeling good. Great to be back on Crate 808.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. Well, all the love anyway, but for people who haven't listened, we did a great Outcast review a few months back, and it's really good. So check out the library. It's up there. But Rob, man, you're back on. Today, we're going to be talking about an album that's lit up 2020, Jay Electronica's debut album, A Written Testimony.
Jay Elec, Hanukkah.
We're going in a written testimony, man. Before we do, it'd be remiss of me not to ask you what I always ask. What is the least hip-hop thing you've done, Rob, in the last 24 hours, mate?
I mean, put up the garden furniture. Yes, probably that.
That is, yeah. There's not many rap stars who do their own garden furniture. So
I've never heard that mentioned in a rap song.
No, although it may need to now. It may need to be. Yes, and also, mate, quarantine, coronavirus, lockdown. How are you doing? How are you doing through all this?
Well, I mean, it's nice to be at home. I can't lie. The one thing I'm always begging for is just to be at home, spend more time with the family. I've got that. It'd be nice to be making a bit more money from the clubs which are closed and all my events which are closed and all the festivals which have been cancelled, but I'm not going to dwell on that.
No, fair,
I'm just going to enjoy the time, and then when I get back to it, I'm going to be back tearing up the clubs. And I think people are going to be gagging for it even more by the time we're back, whenever that may be.
That is it, mate. That is it. I was saying to the lads, I was like, look, end of the day, because we have like things booked and stag do's and, you know, parties, and we were supposed to go to Ibiza this year and all this. And it's like, yes, this is rubbish. Nobody wants this right now. And for yourself, I mean, I feel for you guys in the music industry because, you know, it's incredibly hit hard.
Pretty much at a standstill.
Yeah, exactly. But that moment we can all get back to it, I can just see it being like the party of a lifetime. Do you know what I mean? Like, you will remember that. Rob?
Let's hope so. So when I open my doors to my clubs again, people come back.
Yeah, yeah, man, definitely.
You will have completed Netflix by this point.
When you get in there, man, near in there, definitely. But yes, okay, man. Well, I'm glad to hear you're staying safe. And let's get into this album, mate. Jay Electronica, A Written Testimony, his debut solo album. Or is it really a solo album, Rob? That's what I want to first ask you before we jump in.
I was already going to take a slight bit of issue with debut. I mean, it is debut, but can you really call it a debut when you've been around for over 10 years? Is that possible? Is this the longest time from start to debut? Like entrance? Is this the longest time in rap history from physical debut to actual album debut?
It's got to be. I can't think of anyone else this has happened to. 10 years, man.
Unless Spliff Star suddenly releases an album.
Which, if Busta's doing as much stuff as Jay-Z is doing on this, I'll listen to that all day long. I'd listen to it anyway. But if we talk about the Jay Electronica hype, I'm sure you were like me when back in those glorious golden age of MySpace days. What was it? He got something like 30,000 downloads, and he was a star off 30,000. Yes. What a time to be alive, Rob. What a time to be alive.
Jay Electronica and MySpace very much go hand in hand, don't they? I feel like that's a good way of describing it. Very much that blog era, mid to early blog era, you know, very much that era was Jay Electronica, defined by that, I think.
Absolutely, and he has everything. It's a nerdy era, the keyboard warrior thing as well. Like
very much keyboard warriors.
His fans are that. Like, I mean, I'm a fan as well, but I mean, there are some stands out there who will not hear anything wrong with Jay Elec, even though it's been 10 years.
He's from the era when people used to write first on a post.
They still do it. People still do that. That's a thing, apparently. I can't. Like, why? Who are you doing this for? No one. Like, it's amazing. Oh, man, that's really good. Well summarised, Rob. Well summarised. But generally, before we get into our track-by-track review, would love to know, did it generally deliver for you, this album?
It depends how... I did a very big exhale there. It depends how general we're talking. The fact that I have relatively low expectations for albums generally, it generally did. But very generally, you know, if there's any specifics in here, maybe not. But the fact that it exists, and I've heard more Jay Electronica, I'm happy. My initial reaction is happiness.
That's good. That's a good reaction to have if that's the way it's going down, right? Like, I feel the same. I think I was very, very hyped when it first landed.
Yes.
Really dug into it. As we know, weeks go by, and there's been a lot of other albums and stuff that has dropped. But I do still revisit. I have to think. I am still going back and rewinding a lot of it. So yeah,
I must admit, when the album dropped, what I really enjoyed was Twitter was very active, and it was reminding me of fun Twitter days when we were like when Rich Forever by Rick Ross dropped, or when Good Kid, Mad City dropped. And I mean, not quite to that level, but it had that kind of feeling where everyone wanted to weigh in with an opinion. Some people were loving the fact that Jay-Z was on half the album. Some people were hating that fact. Some people were just happy to hear Jay Electronica. Some people were just happy to start hating. And I enjoyed every facet of that debate.
That's a really good extension to this album, by the way. To go from the live stream when he dropped it, because I remember that was a thing. It was like, oh, he's live streaming his album. Oh, I'll definitely be checking that out. I don't know if I really enjoyed that live stream. Wasn't like the best live stream.
No, it wasn't. And excitement's not the right word, but it had the whole thing of, we've got a virus. Looks like the world's about to end. Of course, Jay Electronica's dropping an album. That will forever be etched on my mind. That the things will be linked forever, won't they? Whatever the outcome of coronavirus, it'll almost determine the outcome of how people view this album.
I said it on one of our past episodes, our DRTC episode. I was like, of course, it took a plague. It took an actual global plague for Jay Electronica to drop an album.
I mean, we all thought it was going to be a plague of locusts, but it was just something a little more indefinable.
Somewhere, cannabis is still waiting for that locust plague. Like
cannabis is like, man, I've been sat in a cave somewhere, like reading every conspiracy theory, but I missed the one about COVID-19. If only I could have coincided my album.
Yeah, it's amazing. And he's the one out there pushing them 5G is the reason coronavirus is around. He's pushing that one. I can tell. But Rob, man, let's go in then, right? Track by track. Let's kick off. Very short project. Starts off with the overwhelming event, which is actually an intro. So,
yes.
So even though it's only 10 tracks, it's technically only 9 tracks.
Definitely.
So, thoughts on the intro, mate? I had a few.
I love an intro.
Go on.
I love an ambient intro. This may just be a personal love of mine. It may not be something that other people, maybe someone they want, like G-Funk intro. I mean, it's not G-Funk intro. Let's just get this clear. It's not Lady of Rage absolutely tearing up the mic over one of the best beats I'd heard all year in 1993.
Oh, mate.
But it's nice because it did set a kind of tone for the album. So I do like it.
If you're going there with intros, though, you like an ambient intro, have a little think. Are there some ones you would like to shout out right now? Great ambient intros you love? I know I'll put you on the spot.
You've really put me on the spot, so I typically can't think of any. There's a few, like even 80 Aliens has a bit of ambience to the start of the intro.
Yes, it does.
With those kind of Kate Bush vibes.
That won't be the only Kate Bush reference.
But I definitely I'm very happy for a scene to be set. Because sometimes if the first track is a bit bumpy, it can really put me off an album.
I think this one, the first thing I heard, I had to laugh out loud when he says, the whole project starts off with a line, "I don't want to waste any time." And I was like, come on, man. You're trolling us here, aren't you? It's been 10 years.
Did you want to call him and go, where have you suddenly got this sense of urgency from, Jay Electronica?
Yeah, he has been literally wasting time. And he's made an extremely short project at the end of it. I was just thinking, is it just short of cowardice? Is it because you're afraid to put anything out that you've got this sense of urgency before you do put something out? Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe
he's not worked for so long. The idea of working suddenly is like, oh my word, this is hard. Let's get this over and done with. I've just been living a life. I'll have to tell you a funny story about myself and Jay Electronica later in the podcast, but we'll save it.
Okay, anytime, mate. Bring it on. Okay, so that's the short intro. Minister Louis Farrakhan, obviously, all over it. Polarising. So he's jumping all over it. It's a very religiously tinted album. So it gives you that kind of, here we go, now you know what you're in for. Ghost of Soldier Slim.
Well, my initial thought with that was where my first disappointment came in. because I know they talked in the run-up about Jay-Z being on the album, but the fact that that was the first voice I heard on the album, I remember just feeling deflated. Because don't get me wrong, Jay-Z is my favorite rapper of all time. However, I don't need to hear him, the first voice on a Jay Electronica album that I've literally been waiting for 10 years. And it's a good verse. Jay-Z's verse is fine. It's a great verse, but I just think it's pointless.
Do you think?
To let someone else start your album.
But you mentioned Rage there. She did it with Snoop, and it kind of killed. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind hearing Hove first, only because the bars were good.
I've just totally contradicted myself there, haven't I? but I think that Rage is the exception to the rule, not the rule.
yeah, fair. No, I see what you mean. But you're not the only one, man. There was a lot of people who had issue with this much Hove all over the project. Anyway, I found different issues with Hove on this project generally. I thought the chemistry was actually really good. Like the fusion of them two was really weird, because this is like a jigger who's trying different things, and he's obviously been influenced by a lot of different new acts, I think. But the chemistry and the fusion of these two figures in hip-hop, so Jay-Z being a billionaire who's constantly starting new financial enterprises, like that's what he does, that's all he does, whereas Jay Electronica is like a recluse who's all about knowledge of self and spirituality.
Who's a recluse who was married to a UK billionaire. So
well, there you go. Yes.
To an heiress.
Yes.
So basically, he's the real billionaire, Jay-Z, and the lazy billionaire house husband, to sort of partner him up.
Yeah. I see. I think you're right. I do like that idea of him having all that wealth and then having all the time now to be about spirituality over material positions, because you've got loads of money, so of course you can be very spiritual. But if we're talking about Hove's bars, I did want to point out a few, because I don't remember the last time I heard Hove like this. I mean, 444 has this on it, but before that,
yes, it does.
I'm enjoying them. Like what's the bars? My ancestors took old food, made soul food. Jim Crow's a troll too. He stole the soul music. That's the blood that goes through me. You assuming I could never sell my soul. They sold their soul to me. And I was like, wow, Jay
is super clever on this album. He really is super clever on this album. And you're right. I think he is listening to the Griseldas of this world. He is, he obviously his infamous line about, I used to want to rhyme like Telequilly, and I haven't rhymed like Common since, and he is a bit more, let me get in that bag a little bit. I think this is where Jay-Z's at, like exactly what you said. He's had nothing to prove for years, but he's got even less to prove now.
Yeah.
And even less motivation other than to entertain himself, maybe.
Yeah. So if we are talking about Jay-Z and where he is right now, and then doing this project, dropping it with, I would say 50-50 it kind of is. I mean, I know Alex produced a lot of this album, but Jay's fingerprints are all over it. But where do you stand on this argument that people have been saying that, because it is a very lo-fi album, I know Elec came out with 40 Days, 40 Nights and put himself in a right pickle, because it's like, you've put yourself in don't take 40 Nights. You've had 10 years. Mix this thing properly. I need to get onto the mixing in a bit, because that's one of my biggest letdowns on the album was that. And I know a lot of people have said that, but because it is kind of it could almost be rushed and not done to the elite level of production, people have been saying this is like a contractual obligation. And Jay-Z just wants to get it done. Where do you stand on that?
I do think that. I know you often ask us to describe albums in 3 words or something like that. Rather than calling it a written testimony, I would call it half-written testimony. I feel like there's all these tracks with these holes in. Jay-Z's like the polyfiller, and he's like, let me just paper this hole over here. We've now got a track. Let me paper this hole over here. We've now got a track. I don't think that's necessarily the case on the whole album. But there's certainly a few tracks where they were definitely half-finished projects that Jay Electronica had, in his Pro Tools or whatever he's using, Fruity Loops or whatever. Jay-Z's like, let me jump in there. And Jay Electronica, is probably, he's not going to argue, because there's no way it's a bit like, look, do you want me to help you with this homework or not?
You're sounding a lot like Joe Budden saying he got slapped around, mate. There's a little bit that in there,
Yeah, but we'll get to that. I don't think he got slapped around. I've listened to Joe Budden's comments on this, and total disagreement, but we'll get to that.
Okay, yeah, I'll bring that back up for sure. I think there is an element, like, you can't help but think that, right? Like, he's had a contractual obligation to The Rock to drop something, and it's almost like, let's just get it done. It's almost like Jay-Z's been like, are you cool if I jump on and help you get over the finishing line? But I kind
100%.
of just want to experiment and do different things because, you know, we see him in all these Twitter videos in the background whilst Conway's bumping a new beat. You see Jay-Z in the back, like, you know, screwing up his face. He loves it there. He loves this new era, Matt Comey, all this.
It's definitely mutual. It's definitely mutually beneficent. Probably more weighted in Jay Electronica's favor. However, Jay-Z is definitely getting something out of this. I don't feel like he's ever done anything in life where he's not going to get something out of it, whether it's, you know, doing a deal with a phone when he released, you know, Magna Carta, Holy Grail, whatever it is, you know, when he's releasing an album to coincide with becoming an investor at the Brooklyn Nets, whatever it might be. However, large scale or small scale in this case, Jay-Z is definitely getting something out of this, whether it's just to experiment, whether it's to play at being, you know, what an album with Madlib might sound like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Might be that.
Except Madlib may mix his music better. Like,
yes,
I hate to be the audio freak.
He's got a very good iPad.
Yeah, he's got a very good iPad, right? I was thinking that whoever's put the post-production on that is killing it. There's something about this Go to Soldier Slim, and I know people have been loving this, and the bars carry it for me. Even Elec's bars are, you know, going bar to bar with Jigger, I think, at times, but at times, you know, it doesn't stick with me as much. But the mixing, I'm almost like, wow, man, this is your, like, okay, so this is like your album you're trying to present, and this is me. Of all the people, you just call up Swizz. Just call him up and say, mate, do you mind just looking this over one time with your ear? You know what I mean? He's on call. You may as well ask. Or Jay-Z, you know, even Jay-Z, just be like, you know, we want to go for lo-fi, but the drums on Ghost of Soldier Slim just could kick in a lot harder. Like,
they could just kick a bit harder, couldn't they? Definitely.
I think so.
And that, especially obviously within the track, they're referencing Soldier Slim and they're doing the flow from one of my favorite Soldier Slim songs ever. You want it, I got it. Don't make me have to come. That's a classic Soldier Slim that exists in various forms, from his independent album to the No Limit albums.
Wicked.
However, the one thing about those records, those Soldier Slim records, they knocked hard. So it's kind of weird doing a dedication to Soldier Slim over beats that aren't knocking, if that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely makes sense. And there's like these West Side Gun ad-libs in the back, and like, you know, that kind of all that, and then these like the kids laughing and all that, and it's like, it's good. I like it, but I just think there's something about that would just give it a kick, a punch that would just make it one of the bangers of the year. But then if we go on to the next track, The Blinding, which has got Swizz on it, I think it's Arab music as well, Hit Boy,
Travis Scott.
Travis Scott. That sounds a bit more like, oh, this is what it must feel like when something's a little bit more finished.
Yes, but weird. Conversely, I don't like that as much. I think. I think maybe the lo-fi was what I was looking for, and maybe that's just the nature of when he's released this record. You know, and maybe because we're in our houses at the moment. I'm not in the clubs. I'm not looking for a banger. Necessarily. So maybe I enjoy that more. Whereas if I was in the clubs every week thinking, okay, I need something from the Jay Electronica album, I think the Swizz Beatz one does that job, doesn't it?
Yeah, then that's it. And people who listen to this podcast a bit more regularly know that I love a beat switch if it's done well. And this is just great, the way this beat switches up.
It's a great beat switch.
Yeah, like that.
It's a great beat switch.
Yeah, and it's the build-up. It's that build and then kind of just bursts open and overflows into like a wavy second half, right? And that really, that's what got me.
And how do you feel about Travis Scott being on there? Does that work for you?
I'm a big Travis fan. I'm not gonna lie, like, I love
Me too.
His Astroworld album. It's one of my favourites of the last, well, it's one of my favourites generally. But like on this, I feel
like Astroworld, if Travis Scott ever said anything of any consequence, Astroworld might be one of the greatest rap albums ever.
But you know what? I had this with it. I had that when I was listening. And then I realised, when I'm rapping along to this, it literally is like, you know, when you're like just almost doing it whilst cleaning the dishes. And you're like, oh, it's just a great just background, or even like in the club.
Production-wise, it's absolutely masterful. Absolutely masterful.
But he just says nothing. But he can't. He's not a rapper to me. To me, he is an artist.
He is an artist. Yeah.
I'm not actually sure how much he brought to this like track apart from his like vocals, but there's that feel to it. But then we talk about vocals, and you know what, mate? The blinding for me. I mean, if we talk about Jay-Z's verse on the when he talks about calling his kids sir and then rhyming sir, and then what was it that he said? The gossip I sent. Oh God, there's something about raisin in the sun as well in there. There's just a lot of layers to what Jay-Z brings, and I think, wow, the triple entendres, brilliant. Let's go. But then you know what really got me about this track? Jay Elec is really, really insecure, and
do you think so?
I think so, man. Like, listen to these bars, right? When I lay down in my bed, it's like my head is in the vice. When I look inside the mirror, all I see is flaws. When I look inside the mirror, all I see is Mars. Classic, classic. But then, in the wee hours of night, trying to squeeze out bars, Bishmillah, just so you could pick me apart. And I was like, so he is like, why am I even delivering this to you? You know, it's almost like, just so you can take me down. And that insecurity, man. Remember the Jay Elec when we first heard Jay Elec? I'm talking Ghost of Christopher Wallace Jay Elec.
Yeah. I mean, Exhibit C, he sounds like the most
ferocious.
When I listen to Exhibit C, I imagine like a Godzilla walking, you know, like stomping everything in its path.
Yeah.
You know, he sounds like a proper throwback to the times of X-Clan, Brother J, Chuck D,
Definitely.
You know, where it's like, I am a man on the mic. Yeah. You know, it's no squeaky voice. It's just like,
straight in.
This is, you know, I'm a rapper.
Yeah.
As we used to know them, Kane, proper old style, you know, macho delivery, which I don't always love, but that was what he was then. Definitely.
There's a one line he says, I can't remember what track it is because obviously he's had quite a few bits out in the past, but there's one line that always stuck with me when he came out, which was, I don't make rap, I make God hop. I remember thinking,
I love that. The short-lived genre, God hop.
Only a certain few can play it.
It's like I think Lecrae has bought the rights to that right now.
But this is the guy that used to be, right? So even, mate, but you talk about insecurity, even there's other bars I've got here. Like, I don't want to spit too many bars, but there's like when he says, extra, it's Mr. Headlines who signed every contract and missed the deadlines, and then comes down to Hove hit me up, what you scared of heights, and then talks about his sister needing ice, and you're like, even Hove's telling him, why are you scared of heights? Like, why are you scared to let yourself out there? And you're like, I don't know.
I mean, I know that line was kind of obviously a reference to Exhibit C, wasn't it? Like, Hove hit me up, you know, Puff hit me up, what you waiting on? So I guess maybe that's him nodding, going,
yeah.
Remember me?
I love he calls himself Mr. Headlines, and he's not been in one headline for like ages. You've not been in headlines for ages, Jay.
Mr. Headlines. Drake must be going.
Hold on a
minute. I'm not sure about that, Jay. Like,
look, Drake's like, I'm cynically trying to expose everyone on lockdown right now by making the worst, most lukewarm dance challenge, right? And like, it's such a cynical track Drake's just brought out with that new Tootsie slide or whatever it is.
Yes.
I don't want to go into it, but you're right. At least he's the headlines. Jay Elec,
he's definitely Mr. Headlines. Drake, Kanye West, you know, Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, they have a claim to Mr. Headline.
Yeah.
Jay Electronica, you know, maybe Mr. Footnote.
Mr. Footnote, yeah. Mr. Headlines on MySpace. How's that? Is it still around? I don't know. But again, interesting track because it does have all those elements. We talk about the sonic side, but the lyrics, again, I was like, oh, wow. The first few listens, I was getting like some rewarding. It's nice to hear content. You know what I mean? Like,
look, for me, I think going back, actually, I think it's actually on Ghost of Soldier Slim. When he says, verily, verily, I tread through life merrily. I give all thanks to God for his universal therapy. Suddenly, I'm like, this is the kind of Jay Electronica I need in my life. This is the kind of rap that I, as an older person, over 40 now, you know, would have, you know, I loved that era of random voices. Like, you know, it's the kind of thing Slick Rick would have said, wouldn't it? Verily, verily.
You know, verily, verily is great.
And then the second line is something that, like, Brother Jay from X-Clan would say, you know, or Poor Righteous Teachers, you know, and maybe that's an age thing that I just love hearing that in rap, that kind of abstract vaguely religious bars, you know?
Yeah. And that 5% thing is all over this, man. It's all over it.
Yes.
There's a few moments, because I think the next track really has that 5% thing I want to talk about. But there's a few moments in this where there's lyrics that feel old as well. Like Jay-Z brings a few where they just twist lines up a little bit, or twist words up a little bit, and it really makes me, like you said, the verily verily thing really got me as well. But then if we talk about the fact that there's a lot of religion on this, let's talk about the never-ending story. Next one up.
Yes.
Alchemist. So interesting.
How do you feel this ranks in obviously Alchemist output in the last 5 years has been prolific, to say the least. Mm-hmm. How do you feel this one ranks?
As a beat itself, I wouldn't put it up there. Like even Lulu Conway's new thing, I think is better beats than the Never-Ending Story.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Obviously, I'm pretty much always going to love anything Alan the Chemist does. As a human, as a beat maker, he's one of the greats for me, without question. Let me just put that out there. But I definitely felt like it was cool, but it wasn't like, oh my God, it wasn't like when Just Blaze got with Jay Electronica. It's not that moment, is it?
That's what I thought. And we talk about a lot of categories on this, and we're going to talk about Alchemist, but I want to say, you've mentioned Just Blaze. One of my biggest Hurricane G moments, the Hurricane G Award, or the Larry Letdown moment of this album was no Just Blaze. And I know everyone said the same thing, but it's the truth. Just Blaze.
It is the truth.
And Jay Elec were a moment that will forever be lived on. And you're just sitting there like, oh, where is that moment? That could have been the thing to seal it as like album of the year, just because Jay, Just Blaze has done one track with him. And then imagine Jay on that track as well. And you think, like, it could have been killer.
I think so, yeah. I really think it needed something. Because we'll get to Shiny Suit Theory in a minute, but it needed something a bit, like you say, just a bit of epicness, a bit of a moment, whether they were going to do like almost like a remake of Brooklyn's Finest or something, where if you're going to have Jay-Z on there, go line for line, or go, 4 lines for 4 lines, or whatever it may be. There's no kind of centerpiece to the album, is there?
No, that's true. That's very true. Initially, you think, oh, that's the banger, but it all kind of molds into just one piece of work after a while.
It does. Which again,
right.
Going back to what I said, is something I like about it. I've got to keep clarifying that. I like small albums. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm with you. I like them projects that you can keep repeating as well. There are some moments on Neverending Story where we have, so the Alchemist beat, decent, it's cool. It's just not like killer as much as some of his other stuff for me. But the bars as well, like I thought Elec's bars were a little bit kind of lukewarm, but apart from there were some just couplets that really stuck out to me. I love the fact that Jay Electronica has given us insights into his listening habits. So when he says, I listened to everything from a lecture from the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan to Serge Gainsbourg or Madonna or a podcast on piranhas. So I was like,
I love that, don't you?
What's this podcast?
This is the kind of bullshit I want from Jay Electronica. I can't lie. This is the level of bullshit I want.
Yeah.
He's basically just talking about flicking through TV, isn't he, late at night? That's what he's gone for, like, whatever it's called, big game fishing. Like, that's what he really means, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't mean like something really specific. He's just literally browsing. He's gone to QVC, then he's gone to like he's seen an old Madonna video, and then he thought, that's a great night. Oh, I really enjoyed last night. I had a nice glass of wine. Let me put that in a wrap.
Oh, that is a lockdown treat, like right now. So apart from the lecture from Louis Farrakhan, I can take or leave that. It's the Serge Gainsbourg, Madonna, and a podcast on Big Fish.
Amazing.
I'd do that tonight with a glass of wine.
I'm not questioning his taste at all.
No, me neither. But then we talk about, all the religion aspects. I thought in Neverending Story, you hear a lot of it, especially Jay is bringing up a lot of religion, and I think it's something about stealing Jesus, something. I can't remember what the line was. But he breaks up his flow and stuff as well. So it's kind of nice. You hear Jay-Z with a different type of like spitting. This is
my favourite Jay-Z on the album.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I do feel like when he just changes it up, relaxes a bit more, and he's just... Jay-Z was the first rapper to ever be truly conversational, I think. Just talking. Yeah, I do think so. I don't really think anyone... There used to always be that slight distance from a rapper to the listener, whether it was Kane or Rakim or Ice Cube, even whoever it might have been. Reasonable Doubt was the first time someone just kind of talked at you, more deep to a certain extent, and obviously came out very similar time. When Jay-Z's just in that conversational mode, like he was for much of 444, I like him. I like him in that mode.
And I know we may butt heads on here a little bit. That exact same kind of conversational, very chill, very like not you don't say chill, but it's incredibly complicated what they're doing. But he makes it sound very, very easy, which is super massive skill. I have to put Biggie there as the person who did that for me, probably the most, like the stuck with me, where I've been like, oh, it just felt like he was chatting to me. We just sat down and he chatted to me.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true, actually. And, the two are intertwined, aren't they? I'm never going to really... I'm not going to argue to the wall on that one.
Yeah, no, but again, they influenced each other, I think.
When I listened to a Suicidal Thoughts, which from 94, yes. I think that's a fair point you've just made.
Oh, man. Puffy couldn't help him over the phone. I wouldn't call Puffy if I was going to top myself, to be fair. I don't know.
Yeah, he'd be thinking out of market your suicide, wouldn't he?
Really would. He'd only be thinking about himself. He'd be like, do you know what? I have got a few girls here right now. Do you mind just holding that for a second and going around? It would be that. It's like, why are you calling him, man? Don't call him. But yeah, no, I mean, this is it. This is the Jay-Z, what was it someone called him on Twitter? The 5% Hove. This is 5% Hove.
5% Hove. I think by this point I got into the album, I got used to Jay-Z being there, but I was still low-key unhappy about it just because I wanted more Verily Verilies.
Yeah. And he is, and by this point, and we're not even on to Shiny Suit Theory yet, but on this point, Jigger's on this like as much, if not more. Than Jay Elec.
I think it balances a bit more towards the end of the album. Because you get we'll get to it, the one track where Jay's on there, Jay Electronica is on it. It's kind of the one sort of solo track. I feel like the balance is restored a bit, but it's still not enough.
Yeah.
I need more Jay Elec.
Yeah, man, I know. But again, one of the things I love about this project is hearing from artists I think I know, and then realising, oh yeah, Jay-Z doesn't really talk about religion. I'm not a religious person. My family are extremely religious. I see the pros and cons of that. So when Jay-Z's there talking about religion, I was like, I want to dig into this. I want to see what else he's talked about with religion. And mate, he's such a businessman, like such a man who he's like Dre. Like he wants to keep his personals personal. And he said, and I was checking out any religious stuff he's talked about. And there was one line on with Charlemagne. He was talking to him and he just says like, I see religion like a personal computer. Emphasis on personal. You let people in if you want to let them in. Like people looking over your shoulder to your computer. You're like, no, this is personal. You can tell it's extremely hard for him to talk about that kind of stuff because it's not his image or, he's got stuff to sell and he wants to keep it personal.
I mean, he calls himself Jehovah, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But, he's giving himself the religious iconography without actually giving anything in return.
Yes.
So, if that makes sense.
No, that does make complete sense.
Hey, yo, this your boy Foul March, and right now, you are rocking live with the Crate 808 podcast. Enjoy this week's episode, and just remember to subscribe and rate and review. Peace.
And then we go on to the next track then, man. A bit of a cheat from Jay Elec here. Shiny Suit Theory.
I mean, I looked in my Serato, and I think Shiny Suit Theory was from 2014, maybe?
2014.
I mean, it's an old track. I was looking, I had a quick look on YouTube thinking, where's the first reported sighting of Shiny Suit Theory? It was definitely over half a decade at least.
Yeah, definitely. Some people have said 2010. I can't find the exact thing, but it is definitely, you can hear it.
It's sort of maybe 2012, I think. It might be 2010. It definitely was a couple of years after the initial Jay Electronica hype. It was a couple of years after.
Because you remember this dropping at the time, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had it. I played it, and I'm the world's biggest Dream fan. I'm like an archivist of everything Terry S. Nash has done.
Nice.
Whether it's some demos, I've got mixtapes where I've collated all the demos. So anything involving the Dream, especially in whenever this was, 2011 or whenever it might have been, I would have been all over it for that alone. The fact that it was Jay Elec and Jay-Z and The Dream was like, and the sample and the previously used P-Rock sample.
Oh yeah, and exactly, and that's it. It's again, it comes in. Jay Elec is, man. That's the Jay Elec I love, man. That the fire he brings in.
Me too.
In the land before time, a land before altar boys, synagogues, and shrines. Man was in his prime. Was he? Was he in his prime then?
Was he?
I'm not sure. Did he like the one thing?
Again, this is the kind of bullshit I'm here for. Like, give me this bullshit, Jay Electronica. This is what I want from you.
Yeah, exactly. But again, Jay-Z bringing fire, mate. Bringing fire. Again, what's these bars are some of my favorite. We have hottest bars on the album. Some of my favorite hottest bars are this.
Is this when he talks about the manila envelope?
I think it is. I think it is this one, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's just
Carry on.
really, really upsetting, though, that the recording of Jay-Z on this track is so awful. It's like someone's recorded it on a potato. What? Who recorded this and what were you using?
You've got to remember, this is sort of 2011 time.
Yeah.
This is the classic 64 kilobytes per second. My, era of torrents and downloads and mega uploads. So
yeah.
Jay-Z was probably just fit. Jay-Z has been the rapper who's been able to fit with the times better than anybody else. That's probably his greatest skill.
True.
It's like, I can capture the mood of the nation kind of thing. I think that's what's it. He goes, oh, so we've got a load of lo-fi records coming out now. Oh, yeah, let's not record this one perfectly correct because everyone's going to be listening to it on a Nokia.
True. God bless the Nokias. But mate, it does feel a little bit like, I don't know, it's like they're both playing Battlefield or Halo or something, and he's on that, that headset you get, and it's like, Jay, do you mind just spitting the rhyme now whilst we're playing? Yeah, I don't mind. Just spit it on the headset. It feels like he spat it on the headset. It's like, what is going
it
on
like
here?
It's almost like the Confessions remix where Shine did his verse from Prison.
From Prison, yeah.
And I foolishly once played that in a club.
Oh.
So it starts with the confession. JD's doing his thing, Jermaine Dupri's doing his thing, and then it goes like really quiet, and everyone I remember DJing, and everyone just stood there, and suddenly, whilst Shine basically whispered down on the phone, and then suddenly it was like, "These are my confessions." Like, oh, thank God for that. It was like the longest 30 seconds of my DJing career.
Oh, mate, Shine has a lot to answer for. I'd have loved that, by the way, if I was in that club. I'd be like, this guy's got some fucking balls. He's dropped a Shine phone call from jail halfway through
If it had been intentional, I would have given myself the credit.
But yeah, and again, like you said, it's your favourite Jay-Z, and his rhyming on here is killer. One of my favourite lines, man. In the world of no justice and black ladies on the back of buses, I'm the immaculate conception of rappers / hustlers. And I was like,
that's just a brilliant line, isn't it?
Yeah,
is just a brilliant line.
Love that. Love it, man.
I feel like whenever Jay-Z talks about hustling, he's always good.
Yeah.
It's almost like he must build a line around the hustling thing, like his verse on Jeezy Go Crazy. I'm a hustler's hope. I'm a nice pipe dream, because what I think of success is what you might mean. It's just whenever he's in that hustler, wasn't born hustlers, I was burping them. Whenever he mentions the word hustler, his rhymes just work around it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Elite Jay-Z there going in. Next one, man. Universal Soldier, mate. Universal Soldier. What are your thoughts?
It sounds like the kind of record that would have been on a Deltron 3030 album. It sounds very 2000.
Yeah, it does. It really does, actually.
And that's neither a compliment or a criticism. It's just an observation. Or something that might have been on the second Lupe Fiasco album. When he was sort of dabbling with Uncle and things like that. So that's a weird one. I don't know whether in 2 years' time I'm going to think it's the worst song ever or the best song ever.
See, so this is an interesting point to do with this album, and obviously recency bias and stuff like that. A lot of people I've read find this beat boring, find it not very dynamic. For me,
it's not very dynamic. That is a fair comment.
That is a fair comment for sure. You could say a lot of that for the newer underground rap that's coming out.
100%
is that it doesn't have dynamism. But
I mean, most of it doesn't have drums.
Exactly.
Just generally, to get some movement and some dynamism, you need some drums.
Exactly.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, but you find the nuggets of gold in other things, and I think having that like in your rotation for the last few years kind of molds your thinking when you listen to something. So when this came on, mate, I was just in. Like, for me, even now, this is possibly my most rewindable track next to the shorter Fruits of the Spirit, which was a No ID beat, I think.
And I think we're in sync. I think we're in sync there. This is, like I say, this is the track that I'm kind of predicting I'm going to hear in 2 years' time and go, oh, this is the one. This is actually the one. You know?
That's it. And one of the categories, what will age the best about this album, I did stumble onto the point where I was like, I think Universal Soldier. I think if we're looking at something that's aged the best, it's probably that. And if Jay-Z does another project, this could be the stepping stone to Jay-Z's next project, maybe.
I know I described it as something sounding 2000. At the same time, it also doesn't sound like anything else, which means it's also futuristic to a certain extent, which future-proofs it a little bit, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. That's a really good way to put it, future-proofs it, because even when you look at Jay-Z's rhyming on this, I don't want to keep talking about Jay-Z's rhyming, because Elec's got amazing...
So you listen, you're as bad as these other people who wanted a Jay Electronica album, and you're just talking about Jay-Z. We've got to move on. We've got to move on from Jay.
But the problem is, mate, is because they go bar to bar, you think initially, not going to lie, first time I heard this, having a shave, getting ready, I thought he's gone bar to bar. He's gone bar to bar with Jigga. But there's one-liners on here from Jay Electronica that stick with me, which is stuff like clutching the bowl, stuffing my nose. Some of the cons I suffered for pros. My poetry's living like the god that I fall back on. Oh, man. I was like, that line really stuck with me. But then,
I like everything Jay Electronica say. Is this the one where he also says, first album with Jay, this is Highway Robbery?
This is Highway Robbery. Yeah.
Is that from this track? That might be from a different track.
That's a different track, I think, but he does bring that couplet out. But he's
got some self-awareness, hasn't he?
He does. He really does. And I think he prides himself on that, which is nice. But what I think that this album will keep bringing back, especially this track, is you do see how Jigga is still evolving the rap game, even in little things he does. So for me, the lines on this track, right, people don't talk about the lines of this track enough because he's writing history in real time. As in, we talk about former slave owners, now want something back because the underprivileged people have a king with similar amounts of wealth to former slave owners. So his lines go, that guilt trip ain't gonna work, don't put your luggage on we. You ain't keeping the same energy for the DuPonts and Carnegies. We was in your cotton fields, now we sitting on bees on me. And I was like, you're taking all of that history, putting it on your own shoulders and rapping about it in real time.
I've got a question for you, Camby. Do you feel that Jay-Z wrote these lyrics to these verses within these last 40 days and 40 nights? Or are these ones that have been maybe left off Magna Carta Holy Grail? Maybe was a verse that he recorded originally for a Jay Electronica album. What do you think? What's your thought on that? Because I find it hard to place these Jay-Z rhymes. They kind of have elements of the Jay-Z structure about, yes, I'm wealthy, which I'm personally a bit tired of. You know, it's like, we know. However, they are different. They aren't exactly the same.
Exactly.
It's not the same narrative. And the way they come across, maybe it's because they're on these sort of low-key Mad Lib rip-off beats that they are sounding this way. Maybe they are just the same. If we heard these over, I don't know, Mike Will Made It may just sound the same Jay-Z.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe 444, because it was more lo-fi, we all thought it was a different Jay-Z, but maybe we're just being fooled. Maybe it's the Illuminati fooling us.
Yeah, that's a really good point, though, because what if it is that? What if it is the context in which he's spitting it? Because his actual lines himself, like, I don't think I've ever really heard Jay-Z put the whole movement on his own shoulders. And he has done...
no, he has.
I suppose he has. As just remembered Occupy the Streets and stuff like that. Like,
I mean, I mentioned the Jay-Z Go Crazy verse, the Jay-Z Go Crazy verse, where he breaks it all down. It's like, I was the one doing the gold bottles. I was the one doing this. I think this is a pretty common trope from Jay-Z to go, let me just remind you. But it definitely sounds a bit more genuine because he's massaging it over these like sort of like lo-fi beats.
Yeah. Maybe I'm not articulating well enough. Yes, he has done that on I've put the game on my shoulders, as in like I've changed things. But what I don't really hear enough of him is talking about like the black white race aspect to things as much. Like a lot of this is about slavery. His first bars on this whole album are about slavery.
Yeah, it's true.
And there's that mature sound. So I think and obviously he talks about the NFL in later tracks and stuff like that. So I think some of it was definitely written more recently because you're obviously mentioning NFL and stuff like that. So it's like, okay,
yeah,
that's fair. This one, I do think it's around the 444 era. I'm interested to see where he would have used it otherwise. Where would you have used this? It kind of fits really well in this album.
I think you are right, actually. When you explain it like that, I think that's correct. It wasn't so race involved before. It was, you know, doing this for what they did to the Cold Crush. He was always kind of alluded to it, but it was generally more about, you know, throwbacks and who had the first ace of spades. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who had the biggest pool? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love Jay-Z, and I think he is the best quotes unquote rapper of all time. That's my opinion.
I love this.
You know,
I love
this.
Of
course, like, because I like there's artists I like more than Jay-Z, maybe their discographies, you know, but he is the best rapper. But you're right. He's definitely on some newness. Definitely, even if it's just he's just edging along the slide rule a little bit. Yeah, it's still a little bit of newness. I agree. Yeah, I'll give him that much credit.
Yeah, he's not massively changed, but there's a little incremental things that he says that maybe, you know, I don't remember well enough from back in the day, but it really does hit home more now for me. One question then, Rob. Universal Soldier. We've talked about the good parts of this song. Would you have preferred this song to be about Van Damme's 1992 film, Universal Soldier, though? Honestly, would you want this or that?
Van Damme all the way. All the way.
I would love to have seen that.
And if he ever wants to do a version of Brian Bosworth's One Tough Bastard, I'll also go for that as well.
I've not watched that. One Tough Bastard. What a great title.
What that was like in the days of Blockbuster Video, when you'd like seen Universal Soldier and you'd seen every Van Damme, you know, and Chuck Norris movie. You were like, oh man, I'm struggling now. Let's go to the Brian Bosworth.
There's not enough action stars called Brian. Like, just generally, there needs to be more action stars called Brian. Great work.
Listen, when you call Brian, mate, you got to step up.
You got to step up. Another thing I was thinking, though, if it's not about the film, though, what if this was used in the film? And then I was like, oh, which Van Damme films need, like, rap remakes? Like, this is the hole I went down, Rob. Yes, I have too much time in lockdown. But I was like...
I love your thought process.
It's just an odd... I was like, you could easily now do Bloodsport and have, like, rap remake of it. So Rick Ross is in it, you know...
Yeah,
50...
Onyx.
Yeah, Onyx. Oh, my God, perfect. Sticky Fingers, yes.
DMX, obviously.
DMX. I had, the bad guy, Bolo Young in Bloodsport. 50 Cent, man. Put 50 as the main bad guy. Yes, there's something.
Bloodsport remake has got to come, hasn't it?
it's the natural thing Jay Electronica would have wanted to come out of this album. So.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is DJ Premier, and you're checking out the Crates 808 podcast. I put an S on it because there's more than one record in the crate. You know what I'm saying? So that's how we dig, that's how we play, and that's what real DJs do. You heard? That's why it goes down. We out here.
And moving on then, man, moving on. Flux Capacitor, right? Another one produced by Jay Elec. So a lot of this is, you know, him on the boards. What did you think, man? What did you think to the track?
This is one of my least favourite tracks on the album. However, I'm still a fan of it. Like, the whole album, I like. It's not my favourite track, though. I've got to admit, if there's one I'm going to skip, it's harsh to skip, when an album's probably less than half an hour long. You know, like, but that may be the one I skip. Yeah. What about yourself?
I mean, I think it's a grower. It's that first bars that Hove's taken and done an ode to, like that my laugh out loud moment where I was just shaking my head. I remember exactly when I heard this from Jay-Z. I was restoring the pantry, and I almost dropped like the beans because he says. This is brilliant from Jay-Z, man. So again,
it would be better if he'd said I was restoring the pantry. That would have been even better.
Yeah, definitely. Because he references his new haircut So obviously, you know, a bit more nappy hair. And then he goes, he talks about like Easter and blah, blah, blah. The slave that shook hands and humbled the Duke of Oil, the spook that spoke sterling silver and pearls twirled, tumbled out of my nappy coils, visions of sugar plums for all the boys and goyles. So he doesn't, you know, we talked earlier about like flipping a word. When he rhymed nappy coils with boys and goyles, I was like, yeah.
That's like a very old. I remember Diamond D used to always do that. Right. Like, he'd sort of, it'd be like, oh yeah, it doesn't rhyme, it's fine. I'll just change the word. I'll just change the whole intonation of the word. Exactly. And that's very sort of Slick Ricky. You know, I mentioned Slick Rick earlier with the Verily Verily. I feel like that's the kind of Jay-Z's really channeling that kind of Slick Rick vibe of I'm going to be a bit fancy with my lyrics, and I'm not on a track with. I'm not trying to go with Future. I'm not trying to sound hard. Record for the club. I can go a bit more fruity. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And then still drop them triple double entendres that broke rap Twitter. When I got up, everyone was talking about the backstabbers line. The line being, "You backstabbers gonna turn me back to the old Jay. He's not who you want to see. He's not as sweet as the old Yay." And everyone was just breaking down that backstabbers line about like the old track from the OJs and him obviously stabbing Lance Rivera in the back, and obviously then OJ Simpson. And you think, I know, just one line.
He's piling them up there, isn't he? He's really piling them up. I mean, I remember one of my least favorite Jay lines. It was when it was on the Missy Elliott track when he said, you know, I kill at will like solid water, get it. And he goes, get it. I kill at will like solid water, get it. Ice Cube. And I'm like, you didn't need to explain that, Jay-Z. Whereas he goes from that in 2002 or whenever it was to this, where he's like layering 4 or 5 different things within like 6 words, and then not explaining any of it.
Yeah, it must be hard for an artist, especially a songwriter of that level, that like high level. You must now he must be confident that people are just going to get it. Back then, he probably was like, oh, God, is people going to get that? Like, it must be quite hard to manage it.
I think back then it was like the early 2000s. It's like, I'm selling millions of records now. I'm on Missy Elliott records. I'm on records with Pharrell. Yeah. You know, it's like, maybe I just need to break this one down. Missy Elliott's probably gone, do you think anyone's going to remember the Kill It Willie by Ice Cube?
One of the best album covers of all time, though. One of my favourite album covers.
No question. You are right, though. This one, it's dense. And it's just built for the rap nerds on Twitter, isn't it? 100%. It's just built for that.
Which is even more ironic that you have that, and then it's actually all based on a flip of is it Rihanna's Higher? And it's all chopped and turned into like the basis of them, probably like the most dynamic part of the whole album. Anyway, is the last. I think it's like the 3-minute mark. Like the beat I love on this. Like after a while, like I said, it is a grower. But it's that last like minute where they just diddle it, and they switch it all up, and I was like, "This is amazing! Just give me like 3 minutes of that. I love that."
Yes, I'm with you. I concede that.
So that kind of southern flavour to it. I know we have like our favourite samples, our sample corner of the. Is there any other samples you really enjoyed on this album? Because that's probably.
I mean, I'm always going to enjoy. We're going to get to Fruits of the Spirit next, I believe.
Let's go.
I'm always going to enjoy. You know. A sample that basically is The Imaginations, isn't it? Because I Love You, which has been used before. Just Blazers used it before. Ninth Wonders used it before.
Yes.
Talib Kweli track, isn't there? That uses it. That's just me. I'm a huge kind of doo-wop, close harmony, through to the Delphonics, Persuaders, Intruders, whatever it might be. Anything with the in front of it, basically. You know. Any word with the, then a fancy name afterwards. I'm in.
Yes.
I'm in.
I love
it. And when you're sampling it, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. No ID, right? Did that sample?
No ID.
And he's doing, and again, No ID's doing a bit like more like what he did on 444, but even he's going even more in that kind of new Derringer, Griselda, even less drum.
Yes.
You know,
definitely.
And I do love it. I do love it, and I love it because I get more Jay Elec on this as well.
And this is his solo track, isn't it? And this for me was I know we talked about most rewindable tracks. It's between this and Universal Soldier. This, one of our categories, hidden gem on the album. This is definitely my hidden gem.
When you asked me that, I thought the same thing, and I'm actually with you on those 2 tracks are the ones that I keep going back to. But again, it's very like I said at the start of the conversation, half-written testimony.
Mm.
2 verses of this would have been heaven.
Yeah, especially
Just
the
stick
way.
the dream wailing in the chorus.
Yeah,
Give us a little bit. Give us half a few bars in the chorus of whoever it might be. Get a Sade sample on there, whatever.
yes,
And then give us another verse, please.
yes. I mean, and then you put that, and when you talk about the verses, who else is calculating azimuths? Like, what is an azimuth? I don't even know what that is. I had to look at what are you talking about? And
Yeah, and is this when he calls himself Jay Cirque du Soleil?
does he? I might have missed that. Did I miss that? Oh no, I think I might have missed that line.
Because obviously, line. The classic Jay Elec, when he breaks it down, Exhibit C. When he called himself Jay Cirque du Soleil, I was like, I love how contrived that is, though. I love contrived things in rap music. It doesn't have to be clever. It can just be stupid. This is where I'm going to tell you about the Jay Elec story. I was we were doing a showcase at A3C Festival, which is All Three Coasts Festival in Atlanta. We'd done our showcase on the Thursday, and sort of everything kind of finishes. Everyone stays in the same hotel, whether it's podcasters, R.I.P. Reggio say he was there, it's like, and there's talks and there's different things going on with producers, Dante Ross is doing a talk on whatever. Anyway, by the Sunday, everyone's kind of gone. It's kind of gone. And there's a few people milling around the hotel. One of them, which propping up the bar, was Jay Electronica.
No way.
And someone I knew was chatting to him. So I went over and I thought, it's Jay Electronica. I'm a little bit starstruck here. This is about 2014 in his kind of peak inactivity time. And basically, he propped up the bar all afternoon. Jay Electronica buying all the drinks. And the guy is basically just a great pub guy. Like,
what?
We were talking about his time living in the UK. He's telling me about where he drank on the King's Road and things like that. And he's like a really good laugh and very self-deprecating and all these things you would never expect about Jay Electronica, almost like a little stand-up comedian. So when I hear things like Cirque du Soleil and he's saying it with that pompous Jay Electronica straight face, after meeting him, I now know that he's probably just he's probably having a laugh to himself.
Yeah. That's a really good insight, man. That's really good, because I remember seeing him live in London around that massive hype. There was so much seriousness when you went to those gigs. Everyone's got their very earnest faces. Everyone's trying to get every line. So when you go to them gigs and then to hear he's a bit more just chill and like a bit more self-deprecating, that's a really nice angle to come at this whole thing with, to be fair. Because then you hear there are lines on here, man. I know I've talked about ones that stick with me, but genuinely, this year, we're talking about lines of the year. The prayers of the slaves are the wings that carry us. A field full of dreams is where they try to bury us. It's possibly one of the best couplets to ever really encapsulate the American tale of African Americans. And I think...
And he has the voice to deliver it.
That's it. And when you talk about the voice, we talk about how would you describe this album in 3 words... I was thinking the spiritual militant poetry, as in he's so militant, like it's just authoritative. It's just bang right in between.
I keep mentioning X Clan. I feel like Jay Electronica could have been like a member of X Clan, rhyming with Brother Jay, with that sort of pomposity and with that, delivery, and even at times when it's a little bit ridiculous, they have the gravitas to carry it off. There's not much of that in hip hop anymore. There isn't really a space for that. We have the kind of the drug dealer kind of, pompous, arrogant flows of like Pusha T or whoever it might be. However, we don't really have that, like you say, the spiritual kind of militant, exactly what you just said, and I feel like that's why I wanted more. That's why I didn't want so much Jay. I wanted just more of that. But maybe that's just a taste thing. Yeah, I don't know.
But it's a tough one because I can see, I think I like the short projects. I just think in such a short amount of content, he's already upset Pete Rosenberg. He's upset, like, you know what I mean? Like, Jay-Z's reminded people that I'm a businessman, guys. You know what I mean? Like, why are you expecting me like with the NFL and stuff like that? Like, trying to put his stall out there. There's a lot they cram in.
Anytime someone offends Peter Rosenberg, I'm happy to. Can I just make that clear?
Okay.
Please keep that in the podcast.
No, we know. But this is it. And there's almost like a poignancy as well that comes towards the end of this project. And you think, wow, that's like 40 minutes, half hour, whatever it is. You know, wow, that really flew by. And I got
It's actually 39 minutes. Yeah, it's exactly
minutes.
yeah.
Take away the old track and the intro, though. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
you're hitting that half hour mark just over. And you think, wow, like it's amazing that he does fit so much in. Imagine if he dropped, a full feed just on his own.
It would be so nourishing. It would be so nourishing.
We talk about it for time, yeah.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. And Ezekiel's Wheel then, man? So we're moving on to Ezekiel's Wheel.
Again, I'm going to bring my Dream fanboy out of me. I feel like the Dream always adds something to every situation. He brings something to the party. Always. Like when he wrote the bridge on No Church in the Wild. Because we can obviously compare that album because it's a similar thing, isn't it? It's kind of like a lo-fi Watch the Throne, if that makes sense. And the Dream just always just adds something. And this track for me it's not perfect. It's not amazing. But it's definitely another one I'm just going to go back to, and I'll always be happy to hear this. I feel like it just works.
Because that's where we differ a little bit. I think the length of it is a bit too long for me, but I don't.
It is a bit too long. I'll agree with that.
Yeah, I don't often find myself going back. Apart from maybe like I don't know, there was nothing in the production that really. But then I don't want to step on the dream, on the Dream, but like I don't know.
I don't think he produced it though.
Oh, didn't he?
I don't think he produced it. I'm pretty sure this was just Jay Electronica again.
I think it was actually. Yeah, I think it was probably more like he's a feature on it, but. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, I never switch it. Like when it comes on, I don't go, switch it. It's just one that I don't rewind too much. But I think that is down to playlists, man. Playlists.
Do you think so?
Once you've ordered them, it's very hard for me to switch an order up unless it's a shuffle job. And you hear, like, if I heard this on shuffle again randomly in like 2 weeks, I may just be like, oh man, I need to give this more love. And that's what I had with Travis's Astroworld we talked about earlier. I'd list all my tracks out. What I usually do on the first few listens is list the ones I liked, the ones I least like, and then I'd realise the one I like the most is actually bottom, and I'd keep like reordering. I don't end up doing that as much now, so maybe it's just one of them that I put it low on the playlist and then I didn't really listen to it too much again.
Do you feel like if we did it like the Kendrick album, like Damn, and released it back to front, we have a totally different perception of this album?
Imagine if you did though, because you'd start off on the most poignant, somber way to start an album. Because not only
it might work.
Yeah, it might work. You could actually be, oh my god, I better get the tissues out, man. We're going to start crying. Because Ezekiel's Wheel was one thing, but one thing it does do really well, the sequencing of this, it really molds its way from aspirational, bang, in-your-face lyrics and beats to almost like a very melancholy, very poignant outros. Because the last track, API DTA, is just one of the most touching, like, tracks.
This is probably my favourite track on the album, if I'm being really honest.
Okay.
I absolutely love it. I feel like Jay-Z is extended kind of moaning intro. Maybe goes on for maybe overstays its welcome a touch. But it is very poignant. I feel like this is the one where I'm like, I allow this one to sink into me. I mean, I love the production.
Karangbin, the group as well, are absolutely brilliant generally. Like their
I love the Karangbin EP from this year with the Rising Sun.
So
love
good.
that.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see this move into rap because I mean, I don't doubt that they listen to this kind of music as well because they're especially Jay Elec, very diverse anyway. But like
exactly. If he's going to listen to a Piranha podcast, he's going
to be listen to a Texas band, isn't he, or whatever it is. But this is it, and again, you hear the stories of they wrote this. I think they made this when Kobe died, and like you can see that. But then you also feel a lot of Matt Comey in Jay-Z, where he's just kind of very, almost like
very much so.
Yeah, he's not trying to fit in the pocket. He's just go. And like you said, I think to me it took me a while where I was like, he's still saying the same thing, like for a while. But then you're like, oh, it's like marinating, isn't it? Really. One of the things on the IPA, because I'm with you, it's one of the most touching verses I think I've heard in rap recently.
Yes.
And then you have like the idea, one of our categories, which we usually use, what 90s rapper should be on this project. And it kind of molded for me, I want to ask you yours, but for me, it kind of molded with our feature trinity category, because I asked you before, which is if you had to have a feature trinity if you had to have either Method Man, Busta Rhymes, or Nas on here somewhere, I just kept thinking, man, this track, just imagine Nas on here, man. Just imagine Nas doing a verse as open as Jay-Z And man,
Yeah.
that would have tipped it over the edge. I think that.
So like
this
a sort
would be
of
the
second childhood type now. It's like that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. And
that
like
kind of it.
Yeah. And like smooth that, like this, the lyrical majesty them two could bring over something like this beat would be, I think it would just be one of them where you look back and, you know, when, actually a good example is when Dre on 2001, the last track that Royce wrote, The Message. Is it The Message?
Oh, I love that record. The Message, produced by Lord Finesse.
That's
Yes.
it. That's it. So it's, that one.
Very underrated record. People forget that record.
But
because there's so many monsters on that album.
Yeah.
You forget just how incredible that track is.
Yeah. And when you listen to that and the way it reminded me of this, like it went out, it's not as good as The Message, but it reminded me of, that's how ending a project on that note is actually really powerful if you do it well.
Agreed.
So I did really enjoy that. What did you have, mate, for if you had to have a 90s rapper on here, what would you have gone with?
If I just had any 90s rapper, before we get to the Holy Trinity question of, Meth, Miles, or Buster, I would have to go for someone, for me, because it's a small, intimate album, I would want someone like Del, in his kind of reflective, kind of almost Deltron 3030, Deltron 2020, whatever it is, era, that kind of Del, or like Souls of Mischief, very sort of small, even like Boogie Monsters or someone like that, even like the Rascas, even like get Rascas a verse on here,
that'd have been interesting,
like very much in that kind of West Coast, slightly reflective, Sophia. I'm going very nerdy here, but this is a zone I love. But I could hear these voices over those beats because they have very natural voices. A lot of these beats are very natural. They're not they're not Swiss beats, Casio beats half the time, are they? They're not clean. They're not jiggy. So you need someone like that, which then leads me on to what the Holy Trinity. I personally would like the Tikal, the darker Method Man Tikal. That's who I'd like on this. Just coming through with a gruff verse. Maybe even on the track where Jay Elec just does a verse. Even having Method Man just doing like a spoken word at the end, at the end of Fruits of the Spirit.
Mate, you're blowing my mind. Yeah.
Something like that. Because Meth, I feel, I'm not talking the comical Meth. I'm not talking the post How High Meth and Red, where it's a lot more fun. I'm talking about when you were actually a little bit scared of Method Man. When he had the contact, the fake contact on the, in the subway on the Bring the Pain video.
What a video. Cameo by Buster in that video as well, I think.
Exactly. I don't think Buster would fit on this album.
No, not at all.
I don't think there's any place. I think there's a place for Nas. Definitely a place for Meth. No place for Buster. I'm sorry, Buster. sorry, Trevor.
Sounds Trevor. But when you talk about Meth and you talk about this album and the context of this album, it shows like how some artists really do mature incredibly well. Or like you said, it's really interesting what you said earlier about how it's like it's not a massive change in the scale, it's just a few dials different. And I would love to hear a different dialed up like Method Man nowadays over some different types of beats. I would, because we know he's got bars, but imagine him bringing like other aspects to it. Oh man, it'd be a little bit.
Yeah, like imagine hearing like a more mature Method Man where he talks about what he's gone through in life. That would be, I would love that. Do you think, just to go back a second, you mentioned Macomy. I'm going to go back to my point that I'm still fundamentally slightly disappointed Jay-Z's on this album, despite all the plaudits we've given him throughout this conversation. Do you feel like this is rich man cosplay? Do you feel this is billionaire cosplay? He's like, I'm going to do a little bit of Macomy.
Yeah.
I'm going to. Yeah. I can't say he's copying Conway, because to be fair, Conway, they're influenced by the Rock so much. I can't. Absolutely. I'm not going to transpose it back.
Yeah, like Benny is Hove. Like
exactly.
But you know what I mean, like not him lyrically, but he even has tracks, that are named after Hove.
97 Hove, etc.
Exactly.
Exactly.
As well, by the way. But this is what I mean about. Think of it the cynical side of it, right? You're sitting at home you're Jay-Z, you're sitting at home, not yourself, Rob, you know what I mean? But like, if you're Jay-Z, you're sitting home, you're sitting at home. And
I bet he's got no worries during COVID-19,
not
has
at
he?
all, mate, not at all.
He's not sitting there thinking where his next paycheck's coming from.
I know, absolutely. He's sitting there just loving it. I think his missus even shot the album cover. It's like, that's how chilled they were for this whole thing. He's like, yeah, Beyonce, you want to do the album cover? Go on then, take a shot. And it's actually a really nice album cover. I do enjoy the album cover. And before we go into that Jay-Z question, what's a more 90s album name than A Written Testimony? I was like, this is the most 90s.
Well, I know
album.
you often ask about the album name, whether it's a yay or it's a nay.
Yeah.
Definitely a yay, because it reminds me of how 90s albums I would like.
Yes,
you know, Raskas would definitely name his album A Written
100%.
Testimony. No question. In fact, that must have been on the drawing board 1,000 times for Raskas throughout his career.
I haven't Googled it, but I bet there's so many 90s albums with a similar
It's got to be
name.
an album called A Written Testimony.
It has to be. Has to
MC8 must have an album called A Written Testimony. But it's a very sort of West Coasty sounding title as well.
Yeah.
You know, a written testimony to the streets.
That's it. And so going on to that Jay-Z thing you asked about the cosplay, and again, sorry to divert again from that question, but you said there about the sound of this. One thing about this album that I think is quite nice is there are different sounds to it, and they're pulling from a lot of different parts of hip-hop, as in Soulja Slim obviously, but then they have a lot, and obviously the New York sound as well, but there are a lot of references that are about rap generally, and that's really cool. I do enjoy the fact that they kind of encompass the whole culture in their references and sounds.
Yeah, and there's even a couple of kind of dancehall references in there. He goes into like, I can't remember, I can't remember whether it's like a Cutty Ranks flow or something at some point in the album.
Yes,
kind of awkwardly, but it works because it brings an element of nostalgia and a reference point. You know,
that's it. But going on to your question, yeah, like you're Jay-Z, you're sitting at home, you're listening to all these new artists who are definitely influenced by you, but they're making your head nod and they're making your screw face. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, oh man, I love this. And then you look at like your roster and you think, hold on a minute, Jay Electronica's still not delivered an album. Oh fuck this! Let's do best of both worlds, which is what we said earlier. And I do think there's an element of that. And is that wrong? Probably not, because I'm happy with the project. I would have loved it to be. I can't deny the fact that Jay-Z comes out for me just with more of the lines stick with me, but the Jay Elec stuff is still good. And I know there's a lot of people out there who said he's not as good as he used to be, but I wasn't felt unfulfilled afterwards. So I think even though it may have come from that, we got what we wanted in a way, except that we wanted more. And I think that's probably
I think that's ultimately going to be the conclusion, isn't it? We kind of got what we wanted, and we kind of wanted more. Or we definitely wanted more. I think you're right. Is there anything wrong with Jay-Z looking at his roster, saying, you know, can I do an album that's a bit like this? You know, I'm listening to this Madlib Freddie Gibbs album. Oh, I've got someone a bit like this. Yeah. And you know what? I'm still writing rhymes in my head every day. I'm Jay-Z. I've never written a rhyme down, etc. You know?
Yeah.
I do think there's a bit of that. And you know what? I can't really begrudge Jay-Z anything. Even though I've not liked a lot of what up to 2003 Jay-Z. I just love him. I love him. I know every lyric, every line. You know, albums that people talk about that say aren't amazing. Like In My Lifetime, I said the people criticize the album. That's the pinnacle of Jay-Z for me. You know, Benny's right. 97 Hove as a rapper, unbelievable.
Yeah,
go back and listen.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be diminishing returns. But it's not like KRS-One post 95 where it's almost unlistenable. You know, well, no, unlistenable.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, you know, Lil Wayne even now. I like Wayne still, but it's not quite the pocket he was in. I still listen. I can still listen to Wayne, but he's a long way away from 2007 Wayne.
Yeah,
he's
not the same. Jay-Z.
Whereas Jay-Z is probably better than 2007 Jay-Z.
100%.
So
you cut that 10 years out.
I've got to give him some credit, even though my initial reaction was like, get Jay-Z off this album. You know, give us Jay Elec saying verily, verily 20 times. You know.
That's it.
Now I've like thought about it. It's like if Jay-Z is needed to be the, you know, authoritarian figure to actually make Jay Electronica do some work, good.
And then we did have a question though, mate. Whilst we're rounding this album up, those Joe Budden lines, you said you had a few views. Did Jay Electronica get slapped around on his own album?
No, I don't think
Yeah.
so at all. I'll tell you why. I'll explain why.
Mhm.
Because I feel like a rapper like Jay Electronica doesn't compete. He exists in his own space. He's a rapper like Devin the Dude. A lot of rappers I like. You put Devin on a track with someone. Would you ever say Devin got washed? Because Devin's not there to be washed.
Yeah.
He's just there to be Devin. If Pusha T and Jay-Z went on the same track, one of them is expecting to either not be washed or do the washing. You understand what you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like Joe Budden comes from that MC mind state, and I agree with a lot of what Joe Budden says, and some things he's totally off. Because I'm not a fan of Slaughterhouse. I'm not a fan of that kind of 4 people attacking the mic for a whole song. Because fundamentally, I'm a fan of music. And someone like Jay Electronica, whether he's lukewarm or whether he's super hot with his lyrics, whatever it might be, he's Jay Electronica. So it doesn't really matter what Jay-Z's doing. It has no bearing on Jay Electronica. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Because I feel like what it is for him, they're almost on 2 different journeys, but they, again, like we talked about the chemistry really works because they're talking about similar themes. And when Jay Elec, like, he does have them couplets. That's if he was getting absolutely slapped around, I wouldn't remember any of his rhymes. He's delivered couplets that are still up there that remind me of, wow, he was. I mean, is he as good as he used to be? Definitely, there's a lot more insecurity, which helps the content.
Yeah. He's been living in the UK too long. He's become too self-deprecating.
That's what it might be. Because
he's got a bit miserable. He's like, oh my God, it's been raining every day. You know what I mean?
That's it, man. That's it. Well, I'm glad we got that sorted, Rob. We're glad we got that sorted.
And just to say, I think the one time Jay-Z did, this is a controversial opinion, did slap someone around was, and I'm not a fan of American Gangster. I'm not a fan of Blueprint 3. I'm not a fan of Magna Carta. But on Watch the Throne, I think Jay-Z murders Kanye on every song.
Every song, mate. I'm 100% with you. But I think we kind of are fine with that, right? Like when you hear that album, because Kanye does his thing, but it's never for me. It's just the levels are way different.
But basically, once Kanye tried to be a proper rapper, he became worse.
Yeah.
Once he thought he could compete with Jay-Z as a rapper, it became worse. So when he did that verse on Run This Town, he's doing all the accents, top 2 bee stings and all. It was like, he was over as a rap for me.
Yeah.
That moment. Whereas when he was just being Kanye West and talking about drug dealing just to get back, I was like, that's the Kanye. That was when he was like the Jay Elec, when he was just in his own zone. When he's trying to be a rapper alongside Jay-Z, no. So Jay Elec is still just Jay Elec, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So Joe Budden, you're wrong.
I like it, man.
Or you're not right. Even if you're not wrong, you're certainly not right.
Not right, yeah. That's it. Perfect way to put it, mate.
Hey, yo, what up, y'all? This is Prince Paul, and you're rocking with Crate 808 Podcast. Now, I want you to enjoy this week's episode, and just remember to subscribe and rate and review. All right? Peace.
So, man, for me, will I be talking about this at the end of the year? I probably will have it in the conversation. I don't know if it will be like in the contenders for top 10 albums of the year at the moment, because there is, for me, quite a few good projects out there for 2020.
Yeah, it's been good. 2020 has been really good so far.
Yeah.
I've been on record as saying I was disappointed with last year. I know we disagree about that, but I've really enjoyed music this year. I feel like everyone's come correct. Jay Electronica probably is the one who hasn't come correct, but I still kind of enjoy it.
Yeah. What have you been feeling in 2020 then, man? Drop it for me.
I like the J Hus album. I like the Little Uzi Vert albums, but particularly Eternal Take. I like the Baldy James album. There's a lot. There's just a lot. I love what Rod Wave's doing on the mixtape / album front. I love what NLE Chopper's doing. There's just a lot of interesting stuff this year.
Yeah.
It just feels open again.
And then if we were looking at this album in the context of that, and just generally, I'm not sure how you feel about scoring things, but if you were going to give this an album out of 10, what would you be looking at?
I mean, if I'm having to give single digits without like decimals, I'm probably going to have to go for 7. It's more like a 7.5. If we're talking about the old Source 5 mics, it's like a 3 mic album, I think, or 3.5 mics.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 3.5 mics.
Yeah.
Or 7.5 out of 10, whichever way you want to. Slice it.
That's a very good way of putting it. It's Source kind of mic way, because I had it down for a 6. I think it was a 7 to begin with, and as time's gone on, it has gone down to a 6. Just because I think sometimes I listen to it on my my really good headphones, and I'm just like, oh man, I wish it would knock a bit more.
Yeah, that's fair.
So maybe it's a 6 at the moment, and out of mics, 3. Yeah, you're right. I think it's definitely a 3 minimum, because there's enough on here to keep you going. If we
revisiting it, knowing I was going to talk to you, I enjoyed it again. So that's probably what nudged me back towards a 7.
Yeah,
because originally I would have been, if you'd asked me maybe a month, like 2 weeks ago, when I was not thinking about the album in the same way, I'd probably go 6. Yeah. But now I listen to it again, I'm like, you know what? I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I now enjoy the Jay-Z more than I did at the time.
Yeah.
I'm away from the initial flush of disappointment.
But again, that was a big wave of disappointment. People felt it. It was genuinely a thing, because I felt a little bit like, oh, that as well. And it's after a while when it settles, you think, okay, and this is why it's good to do a review a little bit after the fact, because
I think you're right. Yeah,
if we've done this review,
I missed the impulse. I call myself Skim King. I feel like I can review an album accurately in 11 minutes, even a 37-track mixtape. I could review a Chris Brown album in 11 minutes. Ultimately, for something like this, I think you're right. I think you need to just let the dust settle a little bit.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, Rob, man, thank you for that, man. People out there, check out Jay Electronica. This album is definitely worth checking out. I'm sure everyone has already anyway. But if you haven't, go check it out, man. Leave your comments. Tell us what you think. Rob, man, where can we find you? Where can the people find you?
I'm on everything at Rob Pursey, which is ROBPURSEY. And hopefully back in the clubs of Shoreditch and festivals around the country very soon.
Mate, I hope so, man. I hope so, definitely. And you know what? We love the stuff you do. That if you genuinely, you're such a good follow, as in Twitter, there's always something. There's always something to be talked about. So
there's always some bullshit coming from my mind that may contain a kernel of truth for some people to question their existence. This is why I'm here. I call myself the regulator, because I just want to make sure that people are just on point. I'm not saying don't have your opinion, just ground it in some basis of experience and history of hip hop, please.
But
Thank
mate,
you.
but this is much missing from my Twitter timeline, so I know it definitely livened that up. So there's go out there, man. Check Rob out.
Thank
Rob,
you,
man. Thank you for jumping on.
And likewise, I know you're listening to Crate 808, so I don't need to promote it, but your man's doing big things.
Oh, cheers, Rob, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. People, go out there. crate808.com, all of that stuff is on there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, follow us, man. We're growing. And man, we're going to catch you on the flip side. We've got so much stuff coming up, so you'll see us, and I'm sure Rob is going to feature again, because we just love having you on, man. You're an honorary member of the crew, man. So
yeah, I feel honoured.
So yes, next time there's rumblings of a Gangstar debate with yourself, mate. So hopefully next time we hear you. Yes.
I'm ready.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. But yeah, Rob, so before we leave you, man, always ask, what's the last great thing you heard? Like, could be old, could be new, just the last track you heard or something you heard where you're like, wow, man, that is still amazing.
Ooh. Let me just give me 2 seconds.
Absolutely, man. Take your time. Even look through your phone if you need to.
Yeah, I might just do that. Hold on.
Yeah, man. Don't worry. Primo took about 10 minutes on this, and I was here for all of it.
And I listen to so much music. I work from home most of the time when I'm not DJing, and I just consume like so much music. I think the best new thing I heard recently was a track called Thug Motivation by Rod Wave, who I'm a big fan of. Rod Wave. If you don't know Rod Wave, he's sort of kind of like melodic, kind of sing-songy Roddy Ricch style, probably close to someone like Kevin Gates, you know.
Okay.
But in the case of probably something that I just heard, that I mean, I've heard it a million times, but the last great, I played it today. I played Lamont Dozier. So I'm reading the Dozier Holland book about, all the hits they wrote for Motown, and don't stop playing our song by Lamont Dozier. I mean, it literally doesn't get better than that. So there's my recommendation. Go to your Spotify, go to your Ask Jeeves, wherever you find your music,
Love that.
MySpace. When Jay Electronica missed the message boards, go and find it on the message boards.
On the message boards. I love this. Yeah, man. Sounds good. Sounds good. You had me at Kevin Gates, so I'm kind of in. Well, Rob, thank you, man. We will catch you soon.
Brilliant. Take care.
Thank you, Rob. Everyone out there, please rate, share, subscribe, do your thing. And yes, we will catch you on the flip side. Peace out, Rob.
Nice one.